Now, this morning's front pages are dominated by tributes and the photographs of those three beautiful young girls killed in the horrific attack in Southport on Monday as they enjoyed the Taylor Swift-inspired dance and yoga workshop.
6-year-old Bebe King's parents paid tribute to their daughter, saying, "No words can describe the devastation that has hit our family as we try to deal with the loss of our little girl."
And then the head teacher of 7-year-old Elsie Dot Stancombe said it is immensely difficult to put into words how amazing Elsie was in the impact that she had on those around her.
And the parents of 9-year-old Alice Dasilva Aguiar said, "Keep smiling and dancing like you love to do, our princess. Like we said before to you, you're always our princess, and no one would change that."
It's amazing they found words at all to put to their feelings. It's just extraordinary. And it's difficult to talk about. You can't imagine what those families are feeling. And the yoga teacher, of course, who was running the class, Leanne Lucas, she's been praised for her bravery, and she's in hospital with critical injuries. Of course, she ran in to protect the children, of course, as did a business owner who was in an office opposite. You know, just, it's absolutely awful what she must be feeling if she knows anything at all, and she's in hospital, and we wish her all well in getting better. Thousands of people, meanwhile, gathered at last night's emotional vigil to remember the victims and everybody who had been affected.
We're behind them 100%, and this should never, ever have happened.
When it's your own town, it really does hit home.
Myself and my daughters were at the Manchester Arena bombing, the Ariana Grande concert, and I feel like this community has come together in the same way as the Manchester community did as well. And I think, while humanity can be really evil at times, it can also be really beautiful.
We're joined now by the Mail's Andrew Pearce and writer and broadcaster Nels Abbey. And, I mean, for us standing there, reading these tributes to the little girls from their parents, it's almost impossible to read them. And just thinking how heartbreaking and appalling for the parents to have had to write them down. It's beyond belief, isn't it?
Yeah, and agonising, and the whole community is devastated. This will last forever. It will never, like Dunblane, it will haunt this community forever and a day. Those little girls are just pictures of innocence, aren't they? They're just beautiful little girls in their pomp, having a lovely time, going to dance to Taylor Swift, make little bracelets, and then this most unimaginable horror is visited on them, and still we've got 6 little girls critically injured, and the yoga teacher, Alice, Elsie and Bebe. We're never going to forget their names, are we?
And the thing about those friendship bracelets, I learned about them earlier in the summer, that if you go to a Taylor Swift concert, you make friendship bracelets, and then you give them to strangers. You give them to strangers, an act of friendship.
An act of friendship, that's the whole point.
These lovely children were making friendship bracelets together, aged between, 5 and 11 years old, with their teachers at the beginning of the summer holidays to celebrate friendship and Taylor Swift. And then a stranger comes into the room and this terrible atrocity happened.
Evil.
And how out of any realm in their lives and their thoughts that must have been. It's just horrific.
It's evil.
And one of the things is, of course, this is our newspaper review.
Yeah.
And, we are often, where the mainstream media writes. So then lots of people on different extremes of political thinking and mainstream thinking think, we can't trust anything anymore. Well, I'm sorry to say, but actually things on social media are incorrect.
Yes.
And when you read the news, there is a level of dedication to at least trying to report the facts.
Absolutely.
Right? In a moving, fast-moving situation where there's lots of information out there, people trust and read things on social media and take them as fact, right? And the thing is that we wouldn't say those things because we fact check. We don't say anything we don't fully know, and if we don't know, we say we attribute it, right? There are these rules in place. You've worked in newspapers, okay? People might not trust everything you say and might not trust, and some of it might be inaccurate occasionally by will or by accident. But these days, things that are written on social media, and the reason I'm mentioning it is because, as we discussed, an entire community, 1,000 people turned up for a 20-minute vigil, and so many tears have been shed and hearts have been broken that will never mend. And yet you get these thugs...
Yeah. Rent-a-mob.
Rent-a-mob, Andrew, who are laughing, and setting things on fire, breaking brick walls down so they can throw bricks at the police. It's absolutely appalling to insult the community that is broken.
And I personally have had a lot of abuse on social media from people saying to me, why don't you name him? Why don't you name him? Well, let's just think
Explain
about
it.
He is 17 under the law. He is regarded as a juvenile or a child, therefore you cannot name him. That's the law, and we should stick to the law. And also, I've been aware of the reports that he allegedly crossed the channel in a small boat. He was born in Cardiff. He is British. And anyway...
His parents came from Rwanda and lived in Wales.
They fled Rwanda from the genocide, the terrible genocide that happened in Rwanda in the 1990s. Even if he had crossed the channel on a small... Oh, that justifies Rent-a-mob burning down shops and attacking the police with bricks, but also, bringing even more terror to this community.
Also, demonstrations outside a mosque in Southport.
It's shameful.
We have no evidence at all of this person's religious background.
No.
The odds are almost overwhelming. We don't know for certain his religious background, but the odds, well, if he's British-born, two Rwandan parents. Rwanda is a 99.7% Christian country.
It is.
And so the overwhelming odds are that he's actually a Christian. What happened is often what happens is that the people get inflamed by social media, and sometimes too, I must say too, by some wings of mainstream media too. They get inflamed, they get misinformed, and then bingo, following inflamed people quickly follows inflamed buildings and injured police officers, injured people too. The rumor that went around on social media was actually so ridiculous. The belief was that his name was Ali al-Shakati, which when translated from Arabic means Ali the apartment. So it shows how ridiculous things really truly got.
It was just completely made up.
It was completely made up. It was completely made up.
It's a completely false...
But it performed the purpose that people were looking for. So if you take a look at it, if there's any remote research that you would have known that going to the mosque or going anywhere or so was completely, absolutely rooted in bigotry. And sadly, it spilt out into absolute violence against 39 police officers in hospital today.
I think we know that, I mean, the Merseyside police have said that this was the English Defence League.
Yeah.
We know these were people who'd come, you know, from out of Southport.
They've been busted, Ed.
They'd come from on big distances to actively pursue a political agenda. Keir Starmer was laying a wreath yesterday in Southport. And I saw this wreath laying, and I was a bit mystified to begin with, not understanding what was happening. With the shouting at him. I think we can... I don't know whether we can hear the shouting.
How many more children? Not your fault. Make a real change. Make a real change! When are you going to change? You're going to shut the bar. Children are dying here because of you.
So, in Southport, there'd been a terrible knife attack.
Yep.
We don't know the details or the motive. Shouts, when are you going to change things, what are you going to do? It only makes sense when you understand that these are people who have come having been fed the lies on social media and they have a particular agenda. And then suddenly, so that's what they're talking about.
Exactly.
They're talking about their political agenda, which has, as far as we know, at the moment, no relation to events in Southport.
Yeah, it is the worst sort of rent-a-mob. It's shameful what's happened there, and as if they haven't been through enough there. And also, the police went into that situation facing danger themselves to try and help those children under siege from a lunatic, and then they're attacked by these thugs.
And you know that the very same police officers who had come, some of them off duty, or on-duty police officers to deal with the incident. They are traumatised by seeing this terrible kind of scenes in front of them. The same police officers are then called back from leave a few hours later, back on the streets to deal with
a mob
burning cars and throwing bricks. I mean,
a baying mob hurling petrol bombs, just shameful.
I once had the opportunity to listen to Eliza Manningham Buller, and she was the former head of MI5. I believe it's MI5 or MI6. She was she's a brilliant lady. MI5, yeah. And she was an absolutely brilliant lady. And she explained one thing to us. It was a leadership program I was on at the time, and she explained that how, in moments such as this, moments such as the Bataclan, what happened in France and everything else, that there's a way in which officers or police officers or anybody else, how they are before that moment, and then when they go into that room and actually switch on the light to see all the injured people or the dead bodies or so. So it has a massive traumatic impact on them.
Of course it does.
So they become a very, very, almost like there's you before then, and there's you after then too. And so I couldn't help but think about that for the officers, and the emotion, even us listening to this over here, I felt a sense of anxiety. I literally felt my heart race as both of you were speaking. So to see that the police as a force and the various people on the actual ground in the community, the amount of distress they had already been feeling, and then for the idiots for the idiot brigade to show up and literally be almost jovial, drunken,
they were laughing.
barbarism.
I heard them literally laughing on the social media. Let's just take a listen.
Yeah. It must be very difficult to laugh about anything at the moment in Southport after what's happened.
It's just extraordinary. And you compare that to the Vigil. I mean, this is Southport. You know, the real Southport is this. Peaceful. Quiet.
Dignified.
In pain. Dignified, thinking of the families, writing beautiful notes. Hugging their children a bit tighter, looking towards each other and giving support. This is Southport.
Yeah, absolutely.
The interesting thing is that there were forces from outside of Merseyside who had come in to help support them. So there is a sense that I think perhaps they were aware that the far right may well bandwagon on this, and so I'm hoping that we'll find out later, because of course we have the Merseyside's Police and Crime Commissioner Emily Spurrell on the show. She was actually with Keir Starmer, wasn't she, at that wreath-laying moment. We also have the former Merseyside Police Inspector who will talk to us about all of that. But you know, the other side of it is that nurseries and playgroups and holiday clubs, from what I understand, have been sending out, you know, notes to their leaders in their leaders groups, just saying, you know, can people bring their children in? Let's lock the doors. I mean, that's the tragedy of it is, of course, the door was open here because the toilet was on the outside, and these weren't toddlers, so they were 6 and 7, 8 and 9. They could go to the toilet on their own. They didn't need. So that's why the door was open, because the loo's on the outside.
But why wouldn't the door be open?
Why wouldn't the door be open?
Club where kids are dancing to Taylor Swift music and making friendship breaks. Why wouldn't it be open? Why? I mean, how have we got to a point where
But the reaction is then to go, lock all the doors.
Well, I'm afraid that's the problem.
Lock all the doors. Don't leave kids on their own.
But at least better that than cancel all these clubs, because this is a rare thing in this country.
I think what's happened. I completely agree with that. I hope that if we go back to when most of us were young or so, like in the 80s, for example, there's a massive difference between how we would have gone out into the streets when we were very, very young or so, walked to school by ourselves, to now. My daughter's 10 years old. She never walked to school by herself till this very day whatsoever. So I think there's a massive difference. But I just want to point out that throughout this massive tragedy, there were some absolute heroes who involved with this too. So a young man called Joel Verite, I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly, your surname properly, Joel.
A window cleaner?
A window cleaner, rugby player, brilliant young man. The teachers, the yoga teacher, Leanne Lucas, and
what did
Heidi
this chap do? Just explain.
So Joel was pretty much ran into the danger. So he saw a child.
He was about to go on his lunch break from cleaning windows in the street, and suddenly heard the shouts.
He suddenly heard the shouts, and he ran into the danger, confronted the guy, locked the guy up, pretty much actually confronted the danger, really just was face to face with the criminal, with the knife man, and pretty much curtailed the situation and effectively saved lives, saved babies, as did Leanne Lucas and Heidi Liddell, who were both the teachers of the day too. One of them actually locked children in disabled toilets. Another one actually had to use her body to cover children.
It sort of says it all, doesn't it? A guy who's going about his daily work, he's a window cleaner. And then he delays his lunch break to go into a scene from a horror movie where he sees little children have been savagely attacked, so he can confront the knife. That just shows how weird and extraordinary this is. The window cleaner comes to the rescue, and his day job is cleaning your and my window.
I mean, you know,
and he didn't even think about his own safety.
No.
He just went straight in. A hero.
Exactly.
Can I raise one kind of wider issue? Obviously, look, we don't know the motive, what's happened here. We don't know whether this individual has had any contact in the past with police or authorities whether there have been any previous problems. We don't know whether there was any issues about access to weapons. So there'll be issues which will arise in the coming weeks. But there is an issue right now, which is that winding up of the mob, that social media disinformation.
Yeah.
This was happening on big public platforms, on Twitter X, for example. I mean, don't these platforms have a responsibility? I mean,
if you did it on
the new owner of Twitter X has been known himself to get involved in a few conspiracy theories.
If this TV station or this TV programme was allowing these poisonous lies to be broadcast, Ofcom would have probably closed you down. Newspapers,
and rightly so.
And rightly so. The newspaper I work for, the Daily Mail, exactly the same. But these platforms behave completely differently. They're like the unregulated hardware.
And did you say this lie had been...
For hours.
You said you'd seen it online. I didn't actually look online yesterday.
Been around for hours.
Is it still there, do you think?
I'm sure it is.
Some of them are. Some of the really big accounts, they still are there. For example, there's somebody who's fairly notorious, Andrew Tate, in this situation. It's still there, but it's now got the added user context or so.
Right, which says...
community note that it's actually false information, that he wasn't somebody who just came over on a boat.
But that information has been retweeted for hours and hours and hours before there's any intervention from the platform.
Bombarding second by second.
And I was being accused of being not a courageous journalist. Why aren't you speaking out, telling the truth? Well, the truth is not the truth. It's vicious lies.
And it's set up in order to inflame.
It is.
But I must say,
and you try and engage with them, but they won't believe you. And in the end, there's no point engaging with these people. They've made their mind up.
There's a wider point here too. Social media is only as good as the people who use it and what they use it for. So when we saw the outbreak of violence in Leeds a couple of weeks ago, we were seeing there was a political movement, particularly on the reform side of things, to actually come out and condemn it and almost again ascribe it to Islam when it had nothing to do once again to do with Muslims. We're noticing now that the cat seems to have gotten the tongue of many of these politicians who spoke out against Leeds or what happened in Manchester Airport the other day. There seems to be a silence on the violence that took place last night. There's no immediate condemnation. There was no call for actually call or in support of police. It's just silence.
Well, the Home Secretary, of course,
they've all been linked. It's all the same movement. Yeah, it's all the same. It's all the same plot. It's all the same conspiracy, which is which is linking Leeds, Manchester, and then events in Southport. However furious this is, I have to say, I would love to hear from Twitter X, to get a statement from them, to have somebody come on and talk to us on the programme and explain to us what their responsibilities are and how seriously they take them, because they are providing the platform, they are publishing this information, they are spreading it, they know it's lies, they know how dangerous it is, how offensive it is, and I think we should talk to them about it and hear what they have to say, because I would love to know.
I've been kicked off of social media occasionally because there's an investigation about something I've said. How is this vicious propaganda lies allowed to stay on?
What era? Was this pre-Musk or post? Or
no, since Musk. Only for about a week. Okay. And it was a vexatious complaint against. We find that. But
they found that.
They said they could take me down for a week.
Right.
But they can't take this vile hatred, which is not true. And look, what that mob could have killed people yesterday.
And shall we just listen from the Imam who Good Morning Britain spoke to whilst he was inside the mosque, barricading himself and others inside the building as the violence
for his own life.
Was flaring up outside. Let's take a listen from Imam Ibrahim Hussein from inside the mosque.
The whole community and the whole of Southport support us, and we support them, and we live in peacefully with each other for many, many years, about 30 years. So we don't understand where this mob are coming from or what do they want. And obviously they're coming from outside Southport, because nobody in Southport will do that to this community.
And I worked in BBC local news in the Northwest for the first 12 years of my career. I never once, and I reported on everything, I never once went to Southport to report on any kind of racial mistrust between the communities. There was never, it's never, ever crossed my news desk, ever, in 12 years. So it seemed, and when he says, the community supports us, we support them, we've been here for 30 years. This is never, so it's clear to him and it's clear to the people at the Vigil that this is something that has come right down the middle, from outside the area, in order to inflame a situation.
Pre-planned. And if these stupid thugs had a brain, how do they think the parents of these children feel about what's happened in the last 24 hours?
Should we just listen from the Home Secretary as well, from her reaction to what happened?
The scenes of thuggery that we have seen on the streets of Southport this evening bear no relation to the way in which the Southport community has been coming together to support each other and to support grieving families.
She's right. The thugs.
She's bang on the money.
Thugs.
Yeah, she's bang on the money. But when you look at the broader element of it, is that Yvette, of course, is bang on the money 100%. But I must emphasise too that some of this, how the inflammations we're seeing in society right now, the tone and the coarsening of the debate, some members of Parliament have to be called out for.
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about. Here. No, well, you're asking me who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm asking.
Okay, I'm saying specifically. I'm speaking about several of the Reform MPs, specifically Richard Tice. I would say so. I would also point out Nigel Farage's response to Nigel Farage leaning into the actual conspiracy yesterday on Twitter. Both of those things would have. Well, Richard Tice hasn't said anything this time around. Nigel Farage leaned into the conspiracy that it was actually potentially terror-related in this situation, a euphemism for Muslims.
Well, I haven't seen that.
Well, I have. And so I feel that those sorts of elements, they need to be very, very careful of how they use their voice, because people are looking at them almost as if the thugs that we saw in the streets are essentially looking at them almost as their voices.
I'm pretty sure Nigel Farage would wash his hands of this.
It's on the front of the Daily Telegraph. Right. Nigel Farage. I just wonder whether the truth is being withheld for us.
Right.
I don't know the answer, but I think it's a fair and legitimate question. This is whether the suspect was on security watch lists. What I know is something is going horribly wrong in our once beautiful country. So he was commenting yesterday. I don't know whether he was commenting on the particular allegations about boats.
I think that was before the violence, wasn't it?
But, yeah,
that's what it was before the violence. Yes, that's correct. But you cannot separate that sort of comment, particularly the weight of state authority.
And would you both say that it's important for Nigel Farage to come out and condemn the violence now and make it clear?
I've no doubt he will.
Exactly. I've no doubt he will at some point, as all parties are.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. OK, thank you so much, Andrew and Nels.